Mr. Tweed? Mr. Tweed, have you been buying tools again?
No. Hello and welcome to Tweed's Garage. Oops. Where in this video I'll tell you about the big thing that was happening, and it's right here. It's a Bridgeport Series 1 2 horsepower J2 head milling machine, and like unexpected twins, this bruiser came along as well, which is a Colchester Student 1800 lathe. Shall we explain? So, as I said on a previous video, I was really happy with my Boxford 280T lathe. So I wasn't in the market for a lathe, but after seeing the difference working on it, I decided that my Warco ZX15 milling machine could do with updating. It's got had a round column on it, and the head assembly sat on top of the column, and you could raise and lower it. It had a quill as well, but to keep it as rigid as possible, you always lowered the head assembly down as far as you could. And it would always be, you'd have a cutter in there, which would be fine, and then you want to drill a hole, and you find you just didn't have enough clearance, so you'd have to move the head up. And then, of course, as soon as you move the head up on a round column, the whole head assembly can swing round one way or the other, so you had to centralise it back up again every time, which got a bit of a pain in the bum after a while. So I sort of looked around the market, looked at the new offerings, the new Chinese offerings, the bigger ones, basically glorified pillar drills, most of them, and they're expensive. The prices are going up on them. So again, having been impressed with the boxes, I thought, well, we'll go down the second-hand British route and see what's about. And yeah, there's some I think some Tom Seniors, but the trouble is they weren't much bigger than the Warco that I'd be replacing it with. And then there was I can't remember the name of it. They're a pre-war milling machine come up on eBay. It was massive. It was a really sturdy piece of equipment, made by a company that specialised really in drill presses, but they did make these milling machines as well. And yeah, that was £500 if you could, one, move it, and two, it would have got in here. But yeah, it was huge. So I ended up, like most home engineers, hankering after a Bridgeport because it's so versatile and a well-respected machine. So I started looking around for one of those. Now the trouble is, where I am down south is most machines that come up for sale tend to be up north, so you've got a 350, 400 mile trip to go and look at it, and then a round trip as well coming back. And then a lot of them are with dealers, and so not only have you got the initial cost that they advertise, you've got the VAT, which is 20% on top, so adds a fair whack on top of the machine. So I don't know, kept an eye out on eBay, and then Bridgeport come up for sale, and it turned out to be literally 5 minutes from my house. So I thought, go and have a look. It was out my price range really, but phoned the guy up, and he's really nice. I said, can I just come and have a look at it and see whether it will fit in the workshop, because I hadn't stood in front of one for about 30 years plus. When I'd done my apprenticeship and basic training, we had Bridgeports. So they seemed really big, and yeah, it is quite big. But so yeah, he was kind enough to let me have a go and let me have a look at it, and we had a chat, and sort of a deal was struck, and yeah, so I purchased this. But at the same time, he had the Colchester Student, which is another very well respected machine, also built in under license in the US as well. But yeah, I didn't Didn't really need it, but it was you know, it was quite nice. So I put it at the back of my mind. He was going to sell it to his cousin anyway, so you know, that was out of the picture. So then I had to start organising my workshop to get it in. I had to re-roof the workshop. It was a job that needed doing, and I've been putting it off, but I find it was the kick up the bum to get me to do it. So I re-roofed the garage or workshop, and made it watertight for the upcoming winter. Had to sell a motorbike just to get a bit more room in here, and general tidy up. And then I had to organise a lorry to with a HIAB, you know, it's one of these hydraulic arms, to pick it up because of the weight. You know, it's bordering on 2,000 kilograms, getting up to that weight, and they're quite top heavy as well. And you know, you could put it in a trailer, but yeah, it's a lot of weight up the top, bouncing around. So through a cousin of mine, I found a guy, and he's willing to pick it up for us. So yeah, all arranged, and it was all going ahead. And anyway, I went to see the chap about a couple of days before getting it collected, and this was still here. This was still there. He hadn't sold it. So I sort of had another little think about it, and I phoned the lorry guy up and said, does it make any difference if I have another machine, you know? And he said, how big is it? So I told him the size, and he went, no, that's no problem at all. And if you see the pictures of it on the lorry, it's they're lost on it. So yeah, so as I was having the lorry, you might as well buy the lathe and get them collected together, get them delivered together, and it's done and dusted. So yeah, went back and had a discussion and made a deal, and yeah, so bought the two. Hence the reason I was restoring a pallet truck. It was to move the mill, be able to move the mill in, and move the lathe around the workshop and get it all organised. So we arranged a Saturday morning to pick them up, and they'd moved the machines close to the door. John, the lorry driver, was there early because of the fuel shortage issues we were having. He had to get to a yard very early each Saturday morning to make sure he could get fuel, which he did, bless him. So he turned up about an hour earlier than us. And yeah, the guys had moved the machines close to the door. And as you can see from the video, the lorry could reach up to the door and hook on to they both had their mounting eye bolts on, so they could be lifted. It was a bit tricky because just outside the workshop there's a huge sort of drain gully, so it drops down, and then there's a concrete ramp that goes upwards like that, so it was impossible to get the pallet trucks any further than we could towards the door. So John's reached in with his HIAB and hooked on, and there was enough height on the lathe to be able to lift it up a bit, and then swing it out and then lift it up and away onto the lorry. That was no trouble at all, and then all tied down safely. Now the mill, that was a little bit more heart stopping, and as I said before, you know, you've got to respect the weight that's flying around at the top. So it had it mounting eye on, and we got it as close to the door as we could on a pallet truck without the weight, you know, the front wheels dropping down the gully and it taking off down into the gully. John managed to get onto it, but because it's a lot higher, he didn't have a lot of room on the hook, between the hook and the doorway. And so his plan was to lean it out and sort of lean it up and away, and it just got to that point of the weight, and it got more than it could cope with, and it went, and we all sort of thought it was going to go, but it sort of went over, and then John whipped it up and away and got it away in time. But yeah, it gave us all a heart attack, and including John as well. We all had a cup of coffee once it was up and away and on the lorry and fixed. Yeah, we all had a little breather. So yeah, if you are moving these things, as it says on other videos, just be really careful. I mean, this is 800 plus kilograms. As I said before, this is near 2,000 kilograms, and yeah, it's a lot of weight. And once they go, you're not going to stop them. So yeah. So John come over here, I opened up the workshop and met him here. We didn't have a problem here, it's just a flat road and I've got a flat apron out the front. So I literally pushed the pallet truck out, and John lowered the Bridgeport onto the pallet truck, and I just wheeled it in and tucked it up the back of the workshop, out the way as much as I could. And then the lathe he managed to drop halfway in and halfway out lengthwise in the doorway, and then literally as he dropped it and started to pack up and go away, the heavens opened and it absolutely chucked it down with rain all day. So the lathe I covered with tarpaulins and dropped the garage door over the top of it to protect it as much as I could. The table, which you can't see but it's in front of you, that had to be tarped up. That was outside, and the motorbike was outside. Whilst I sort of moved everything around, it was like one of those word puzzles, you know, so I had to move the mill a little bit, move the Boxford out, get that jacked up and moved out, and then finally got the Bridgeport into position. And then what did I do then? I think, yeah, move the Boxford again, and just had to think how to get the Colchester in, because it's longer than it wouldn't fit on the pallet truck lengthways, and widthways. Although the pallet truck would go underneath it, there's nowhere to jack it up, unlike the Boxford. You know, a pallet truck will fit straight under that cabinet and lift the whole thing up, but this one, it's yeah, you got the brake bar in the way, and yeah, it gave me a little bit of a puzzle how to move it. So what I'd done was I moved the saddle right down to that end, took the tailstock off just to make this end as light relatively as possible. Got the pallet truck underneath that end of it, and then under this end put a board and a 3-ton trolley jack, and used the trolley jack as a skate, like a machine skate. So it was perfectly stable, because with a pallet truck at that end and 2 wheels there and one at the back, and this one here, it's sort of like a triangle. So it was nice and stable, and it moved, yeah, surprisingly easy. Once we sort of got that sussed, got it into position, and dropped them down, and there they are. So nearly all ready to go. I'll explain on another video, because it was an engineering company that was shutting down, and unfortunately, you know, which is, you know, really sad. You don't like to see it happen, and unfortunately he hadn't been working due to lockdown and you know, and COVID and all other things. The machines were laying sort of dormant for at least a year, maybe two years, in a workshop that's sort of in the middle of a farmland, and it's in a dip and it gets really cold. So they've had 2 cold winters. Bridgeport's okay because it's mainly oil and grease up in the top, and yeah, and a little gearbox in there, and it's fine. But on these Colchester students, I've seen another guy do a video of draining the gearbox down and then having to rebuild it, and him saying with other ones he's noticed, he was suspecting people were putting water in them, you know, to vandalise them. But this one was exactly the same, and this is a 1-owner lathe from new, so you know, not abused by other people, and it's just, you get condensation build up in the gearbox, in the oil, and it gets a bit forgotten about. The oil doesn't get changed, and yeah, it was a bit of a mess in there. One more winter and I think this would have been scrap, you know, it wouldn't have been any good. The gearbox would have been toast, but caught it just in time. So it's had a full gearbox rebuild, got all the gunk out of the saddle because there's an oil reservoir in the bottom of here, and the same thing had happened there, condensation, oil sitting there. and then it was starting, the oils turned to, the oils turned to acids, were reacting with the water, and it was starting to eat away the base plate on the bottom of the saddle, not badly, but a little bit longer, and it would have eaten around the bolt holes, and it would have been leaking oil and all sorts. So I've caught it just in time. So there'll be a video on that. You can watch that if that's your bag, man. Yeah, so we got that, got this, and got some other things as well. Oh, and also they're three-phase, Alan. How are you going to power them? Well, I can't afford to put inverters on them all, because the Colchester has its spindle motor, which is 3 horsepower. It has a pump as well for the lubrication, the cutting lubricant. The Bridgeport is a 2 horsepower motor, and then it also has your carriage feed motor and the coolant motor. That's it, I think. Yeah. So the trouble with the inverters like I put on the Boxford, you need 1 inverter per motor. So you start adding that up. So, Mr. Tweed, how do you power these beasts? Well, I had a look around and went on good old eBay again. And just before I took delivery of them, I managed to find this 3-phase rotary inverter. So basically what happens is your single phase comes in, and it's got some capacitors in there and some timing contact equipment. So that sort of fires up the 3-phase motor, gives it a bit of a kick to fire it up on single phase, and then the phases are generated through the motor out to your plug. Yeah, you just plug your machine in there and off you go. Don't ask me how it works, it's sort of all quite magic, but it does the job. He also gave me a deal on a Fobco drill, which are legendary in the UK for their accuracy, and a diamond lap as well, which I didn't know what I was going to use it for. I asked him and he said, well, for sharpening carbides. So I bought it, didn't think I'd use it, but I've actually used it, and you'll see what I used it on when I repaired the lathe. That's why I rebuilt a pallet truck. Not so mad after all. Couldn't shift them on your own, could you? And yeah, really pleased that they're in now. It was stressful, I'm not denying that, sort of organising it, organising a lorry to pick them up, paying a vast amount of money with nothing to show for it for weeks, and then we had the fuel crisis in the middle, so people couldn't get to the workshop or open that the lorry driver could get here. But they're all in now, and quite happy. And once you've moved a few big machines and you've sort of got the hang of it, yeah, it's not so daunting. So if you're thinking about it, be sensible, be safe, but yeah, you can do it. Anyway, I hope you liked the video. If you did, give us a little like, and look in again, because there'll be follow-up videos on the lathe, on the rebuild, and working on the mill and the other machines, and yeah, there'll be a Riley update as well. See you soon.
Okay. Stop horsing around.
Forgot the name of it.